I will give Senator Frisano his due. He's had a budget, which clearly the Republicans in the House don't agree with, because otherwise they wouldn't be pretending to have their own. And I give Senator Looney a lot of credit for wanting to get something done in a timely fashion.
But if you've been willing to compromise on a 2-year budget plan, I mean, that's part of the issue.
What do you mean compromise? What do you mean?
You said that either pass my 2-year budget plan as is, or I'll run the state by executive order. So I'm just asking, did your position contribute to this situation we find ourselves in on the penultimate day of the 2017 fiscal year?
You should listen to your words. I told you for over a month that I would lay principles out that would govern our actions, and I did. I told you that I would tell you what they would lead to, and I did. And in doing so, I went a step further and said, this is not a good solution. This is not a preferable solution. Here's a better way where we stop certain raises from taking place that might otherwise impede agreements with other unions, that we preserve revenue sources that otherwise would expire, that we permit ourselves to fund things that I can't otherwise fund under executive order. Let me ask you a question. What was wrong with that budget?
I'm not an elected leader.
No, wait a minute. Let me just drill down here. What single thing did you hear, or what group of things did you hear from either leaders that was a complaint about the mini budget?
They said your teacher retirement board scheme was an abomination, and I believe words stronger than that. That you were handing the municipalities a growing debt. That was one criticism.
Absolutely.
About the hospitals would prevent them from appealing certain decisions of your administration.
Okay.
I mean,
So they came in and they passed it without those things?
I don't know.
No, they didn't. You do know.
Well, that goes back to my earlier question about you not being willing to compromise.
First of all, that people want to preserve claims against the state that are egregious and will cost the taxpayers hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars, is quite frankly outrageous. This for a group of institutions that have had a $500 million profit this year. But wait. What was the other? What was the one? So the Democrats come with a proposal, without negotiation, to raise teachers' contributions to their pension by 2%, from 6% to 2%. If you run the numbers, their pension, they would be paying more for their pension than they.
You didn't ask us to explain.
No.
You asked what was a single objection, and I gave you a major objection.
And I'm answering those because they were never brought to me, Paz. They were never raised with me.
I wanted to hear the numbers on the teacher pensions for 6 days.
The value of their pension is probably is probably less than that over the full life of the pension. And so let me be very clear about that answer to you. How would they do that? This is a cornerstone of their budget. And then let me go back to this issue about what we would or wouldn't do with, name another municipal employee that the state is solely responsible for the pension of. You can't say firemen, you can't say policemen, you can't say custodians, you can't say nurses, you can't say doctors, you can't say anything else. Now, I will agree with you that former governors and former legislatures did not properly fund the teacher's pension and the state employee's pension, something which I am desperately trying to straighten out, and have been since the first day I came to this building, and ran on that principle when I was running for that office. So what they're really saying is they don't like the plan to do or undo what they did previously. And by the way, at the same time, they want to gut transportation. You know what? If we're going to meet on the 18th, let's meet down in Stamford at 9 in the morning. Or in Fairfield at 9 in the morning, or in Westport at 9 in the morning. Are we so blind to the weaknesses of our state? Even the day after a report comes out that says our roads are in some of the worst shape in the nation? Are we that blind to understand what is keeping jobs, our fair jobs that would otherwise move out of the New York area, not coming to Connecticut? Are we so blind to the fact that we've let down our urban environments and can't compete with other states' urban environments?
So where do we go from here? The
I'll be
speaker
here.
said he was handing
I'll be here tomorrow.
his budget document.
I'll be here tomorrow.
Did he deliver one to you?
Why don't they publish a list of who was at the meetings today?
Let's talk about that. Is that a dereliction
We'll
in
take
your,
it.
what, is that a dereliction in your view? Let's be a little more pointed. What are you saying about this?
What I'm saying is that the Republicans and the Democrats should have been here, and they should be here tomorrow, just like I'll be here tomorrow.
What's your view of the 6.99 and the local option 7.99?
Listen, I have said that budget discussions cannot be led with revenue. I've said that since January. And what do they lead with? Revenue, including taking revenue away from transportation. An area where we quite frankly need to spend more money, and we need to do it rapidly.
But getting to Christine's question, what is the path forward to resolving this, I don't want to call it a budget stalemate, because I don't think that's the proper word, just this budget situation?
They need a passed budget. I mean, I've been saying for months that if they need a cathartic moment, let them pass a budget. Let them pass the Democrats' budget, where if they can find one. Let them pass the Republicans' budget if they can agree on one. And then maybe that's the appropriate. But we could be doing that today. We could do that tomorrow. We could do that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, all the way up to the 18th and well beyond that. I've been saying that. Wait, have any of you not heard me say, send me both budgets? If there were?
Roll them in. Obviously, it sounds like you don't like, for the 18th, if they do nothing and roll it out on the 18th, you don't like the 6.99, you don't like a series of things that you've told us. In the negotiation between now and the 18th, are you going to summon them in and explain this to them? They should already know what your position is, which is essentially what you keep saying. But at least they have a budget now. You were basically saying that they didn't. Does this make it easier for a framework for negotiations? At least they have something on the table. Or do you not view it that way?
They're leading with revenue. This is a spending problem. They're leading with revenue. I've said since January, and if not January, certainly no later than February, that this was not a revenue-driven discussion. It needed to be a change discussion. I understand that it's politically popular to give everything to everyone that you have ever given before, but that's not the budget dilemma we're in. That allows that to happen. You know, things have to change, and you know, I don't think that there's an understanding amongst Republicans and Democrats in the House that things have to change.
What's your view of the announcement that Edna is moving their home office to New York?
I was shocked.
Governor, can I
You
go back?
know,
I mean, they've announced that on a repeated basis,
Yes, I know.
and they went through their own dance pretending that they might go to Boston when you knew and I knew and everybody knew where they were going. They were going to New York, but that's
So-
where they're moving 200 jobs that we know of, and I'm focused on the close to 6,000 jobs that are remaining in the state, and I wish the leadership of the company well in the digs in New York.
Isn't it another public relations blow like GE 200? They're very high-end jobs. They're very prestigious jobs. They pay a lot of taxes.
Just like the Jackson Labs jobs that will top out at 300 this month and will go beyond 300 by January 1st, just like the NBC Sports jobs that were, 1,100 now. Just like the Navigator insurance jobs that we brought to the state of Connecticut, just like a lot of the employees, not all the employees, but some of the employees for Amazon that have moved into the state in the last few years. I mean, I could go through other lists. Yeah, every job loss is a loss, and every job gain is a gain. We tend, because we're from Connecticut, to beat ourselves up most about about losses and fail because we're Connecticut to celebrate our gains, but that's the nature of who we are and what we are. We're Yankees.
And what about the specific?
Not Yankees like the team I root for in New York, but Connecticut Yankees.
What about the specific?
Max, let me,
Sure.
I just want to get back to the budget for a sec. You said that, I'm assuming you mean the judge's contract, that the raises is going to impede other agreements with other unions. Can you talk a little bit more about the ramifications of those pay raises coming?
well, and I raised this issue with the leaders. There are judicial branch unions that have to vote on this, and imagine how you would feel about voting on that agreement in the context in which other people are receiving $400 a month raises.
You mean the CBAC?
Well, the CBAC and the actual contract, So, I mean, I think it's a tough signal to send. Now, I hope people in the unions recognize that was baked in, but I couldn't blame them for being angry. I hope they'll do the right thing for the long interest, but I asked specifically that they take up a mini budget, in part so that we could address that issue.
Do you think the Democrats, you're not going to be running next year, but do you think the Democrats are possibly setting themselves up for failure or disappointment at the polls in 2018 by the way they're handling this budget?
Listen, we got a president who can't stay off his Twitter account. I have no idea what's going to happen next November, quite frankly.
We saw the Democratic majorities whittled down to a tie in the Senate for the first time since 1893, and a 7-seat majority in the House, which is the narrowest since 1959 or 1960. So
I don't think either party in the House is covering themselves in glory today. Neither of them were here. I didn't hear requests from the minority leader to the speaker to gavel in. I didn't hear the speaker say to the minority leader that he wouldn't do that. It just nothing happened.
Can I take one more stab at the where do we go from here?
Yeah, sure.
You've got strong convictions on a lot of issues with different groups. In other words, the House Democrats don't share your conviction about revenue. Obviously, with this budget, they see things differently. I'm not judging either side. When it comes to how to achieve labor savings, the Republicans and some of the House Democrats would prefer to legislate them. These aren't issues that are easy to split down the middle. So I guess what I'm just asking is, it seems like everybody's saying, well, why don't we just go after July 1, see who blinks at the collateral damage, and we'll go from there. Is there any other way other than that scenario, except for people to give on these big philosophical issues?
Keith, I can't. No. I'm not picking on you. I can't pass a budget through a legislative body. Only the legislative body can do that. So, I have said easily for 6 weeks, send me a budget so that we can get going on this. You've heard me say that. So please, when you write your story and you talk about the answer to this question, include the fact that I have invited repeatedly for budgets to come to me. And they haven't come. Now there's a reason I think that the House is not meeting, is because they don't have the votes to pass a budget. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Republicans don't even have a budget. I mean, they both don't really have a budget. I've seen an outline, I've seen a fact sheet, I've seen a spreadsheet. I don't see a budget really. But with any explanation, we have to explain things.
Not that it's your responsibility to, but would you consider, if they can't compromise on their own, would you consider developing a plan that you think sort of bridges the gap between the philosophical arguments and gives them a starting point?
I did. It was called the
Yes, I'm wondering if you think another, you still don't have a budget.
I did.
Ben has nothing to do, he just told me.
He's got things to do, I can assure you. I'm not trying to be difficult or dismissive of the question or of the Democrats and the Republicans serving in the House. But not to gavel in and have a discussion about this situation, I think is something that I'm having a really hard time to wrap my head around. And I think, in truth, some of you are as well. I proposed a budget, fully documented and explained, testified. People work for me extensively before committees. They couldn't get a budget out of a committee. They got a finance plan out of a committee, but they didn't get a budget out of committee. That was in April. Here we're on the cusp of July, and they send us a document apparently cobbled together at the table that we saw the picture of yesterday, and then don't come in to vote on it. They didn't vote. They're not here. How do you compromise with people who aren't here?
Governor, where do you see the end game here? Obviously, people are disagreeing. You've got a set amount of time until they're claiming that what was done on July 18th. Where does this end?
Well, I think that all the people who want our budget discussions to be led by how much more revenue we're going to raise will be disappointed with me. And I think I probably won't get any credit from the folks who realize that I'm trying to beat that back. The best way to move forward would be for the chambers to send me a budget.
And in terms of in the short term with the executive order, how are you preparing? Has anything changed since you last wrote your plan?
I haven't signed the executive order, waiting for the outcome of what would happen today or tomorrow, but by the end of tomorrow, I'll sign the executive order and we'll proceed as outlined. And I'll,
It's ready to go.
I haven't read this in anybody's coverage, but maybe it's been on the TV coverage. No governor, in the circumstances I'm in, has laid out to you as clearly how they would function, how the state would function post-failure. This is a failure of the legislature to pass a budget. I laid it out. I told you I would have principles. Not a single legislator said my principles were wrong. I gave you a budget, very detailed, far more detailed than Governor Rell did, or Rowland, or Weicker. It's out there. I came up with a way to alleviate some of the pain, some of the suffering that quite frankly, will be needlessly caused because of the expiration of the prior budget. And here we are. We're going to get together on the 18th of July. I'm dumbfounded.
Well, how do you feel Senator Looney wasn't certain that he would go along with that?
I don't know how all that stuff works, whether they have to both, they don't have to both come in at the same time, so.
No, Senator Looney was saying he might not, he was reserving the right not to sign the bill, which means there could be no vote now, so there could be no way to place the
Okay.
bill. Right.
All right, they should do lunch. Listen, I don't know what else, you keep asking me what I'm going to do to resolve this issue. And I think the best way at this point to move forward, if the Democrats have votes in have sufficient votes in the House to send me a budget, they should send me a budget.
How much do you think this is attributable to the fact that...
And by the way, if the Republicans have sufficient votes in the House, they should send me a budget. And they shouldn't wait until July 18th. They should have been doing it today. They should do it tomorrow. They should do it every day.
They can't run a budget until Senator Looney and House Speaker Harrison would sign a bill. They are unwilling to do that.
So go back to the Speaker and ask him, and go back to the minority leader of the House and ask them the same questions you asked me.
How much do you think should be attributed to the fact that he has members who aren't actually in the state?
You know,
He said he was going to have about 70 in his caucus. He has 79 members.
Yeah, look, listen, people miss days. I understand that. I'm not, I don't know. I don't know what to say. I'm here.
Governor, you talked about this being a failure of the legislature, but isn't it also more a failure of the Democrats in the legislature to coalesce around a budget and send one to you? I mean, they're in charge. They're the majority in the House. They're the nominal majority in the Senate. Isn't this the fault of the Democrats?
There's been no vote on a Republican budget in the Senate And there, quite frankly, let's be honest, there is no Republican House budget. So how could the Republicans convince Democrats to vote for something that they haven't actually produced? No.
Is the fact that the Democrats, aren't they to take the lion's share of the blame for the failure to adopt a budget on time, the failure to adopt a budget by this latest June 30th deadline? They're in charge of the legislature.
You can write that in your article or in your paper's editorials. I think it's a failure of both sides, particularly in the House, particularly with respect to avoiding this failure to have any budget in place by July 1st. It is a House issue. I don't know what caused them to be willing not to bring their members in. I don't know. I urge both the minority leader and the speaker to show up with sufficient votes to pass a budget that's clearly better than no budget, and clearly could be undone by, and has to be undone by, any subsequent budget. Anything they didn't like could be undone whenever they passed the replacement budget. I guess that was, put that in the story, will you please?
Will do.
And make sure Paz heard that, okay? If they didn't like things in the mini budget, all they had to do is to pass a real budget. This is like throwing someone a lifeline and having them say, no, I don't want to use the lifeline. Here's a life preserver. No, I don't want that either. I want to take the ship down. See you all later. Thanks.